Hi everyone, so today we're going to read chapter 19 of The Vanishing of Billy Buckle. Fidget managed to extract Primrose from the clutches of Theo Callis on the understanding that they would return tomorrow for rehearsals. By the time they reached Wings & Co., Fidget was exhausted. There was an unusual greyness about his tortoiseshell colouring. "Fidget, at last you're back. I've been so worried about you," said Emily, giving his paw a little squeeze. "We've lots to tell you. Buster and I tried to rescue you from that awful Theo Callis, but he had the security man escort us from the building." "Never mind, my little ducks. I've things to tell you too. I was curious about the rumble coming from under the dance floor. Went down there, saw something. I'm not sure." He held his tummy and looked very wobbly. "Before I can say any more," he said warily, "I need some fish paste sandwiches and a kip." Primrose, on the other hand, was blooming. She appeared to have grown a little bit since breakfast, which was rather alarming for her head now was not far from touching the ceiling. Time, Emily could see, was running out. "I've had a most wonderful day," Primrose told Edie as the kindly fortune teller took her upstairs to bed. "It's the best day I've had since Daddy's been gone." Soon Fidget was fast asleep in his favourite armchair, while Emily sat studying the notes she had taken when they had interviewed Mr. Trickett earlier that day. The more she looked at the name Blinky Belvale, the weirder it seemed to be. She sucked the end of her pencil as she looked back over the notes she had made earlier in the investigation. The Sad Dad's Band. Billy Buckle played bassoon. Hadn't played with the band for ages. Didn't take Primrose because he had to cross the Valley of Doom, where the bog-eyed loader lived. Bell Ogre Shape Shifter. "Oh dear," thought Emily. "I wish I knew what a shape-shifting ogre looked like. That's the trouble with not being a fairy." Buster was walking back and forth like a detective, in need of a deerstalker hat or a very large magnifying glass, or both. What he was actually thinking had nothing to do with the case. He still hadn't quite recovered from Emily's outburst. She had called him vain. Well, unlike certain people who were happy to wear knitted fit dresses, he cared about how he looked. He wasn't arrogant. Well, maybe a bit. That was only because he knew more than anyone else. And how could she call him unreasonable? He had no idea. Perhaps she was just jealous because he had wings and she didn't. As for difficult to work with, well, that wasn't fair. Look how patient he had been with Emily, even though she wasn't a fairy, which made her truly difficult to work with. "All right," Emily said to Buster. "Stop being mysterious and wearing a path in the carpet. What do you think?" Buster wanted to say that he wasn't a prima donna, but his pride wouldn't let him. So instead he said, "I think we're dealing with a murder and an abduction." "Wow! What's that abduct word mean?" asked Emily. "Abduction," Buster said grandly, "means to take someone away against their will." "So why didn't you say so in the first place?" asked Emily. "I suppose you mean Billy Buckle." "Of course. We agreed," said Buster, still walking back and forth, "that in both the suspected abduction of Billy Buckle and the murder of Johnny Carmichael, the fairy world seems to be involved. So the question is, are the cases related? It's a tricky one." "You can say that again," said Emily. So many bits and pieces didn't add up or even join together, no matter how hard she thought about them. "All right then, here's what we know, or what we think we know, or what we don't know," said Buster. "First of all, we think we know that the reason the shop brought us to Pudley-Pool-on-Sea is to help us find Billy Buckle. After all, if Primrose grows much more, the old beams won't be able to take it and the shop will collapse. We know that the keys have lost their metal, but we don't know why. We know that the two fairies have one wing each returned to them, but we don't know why. We know that Maurice Flintwinkle didn't murder Johnny Carmichael, but we don't know who did, though Blinky Belvale has a motive. And we don't know," said Emily, "if the murder has anything to do with Billy, which takes us round in a big circle back to the beginning." "Not quite. We know Edie had her crystal ball smashed by two thugs. One was wearing a day-glow vest, the other wearing trainers with flashing red lights in the heels. Maurice saw someone under the stage wearing trainers like those just after Johnny Carmichael was killed." "Perhaps they smashed the crystal ball to stop Edie seeing something on it," said Emily. "Like who murdered Johnny Carmichael?" "Oh, I don't know. Do you know, I just don't think we know much at all." "But we have some very important clues," said Buster. You mean the fragments of Edie's crystal ball? Yes, said Buster. In one piece I saw a seagull. And that tells us, asked Emily. Nothing, except that we know already that sea, sand and seagulls go together. Then there was a skeleton, said Buster. Now I have an idea about that. All over Puddley-Pool-on-Sea, there are posters advertising a new attraction in the ghost train. Skeletons and ghost trains go together, and Fidget just said he saw something suspicious down there. Or, said Emily, the skeleton can just stand for a dead body, like Johnny Carmichael's, and have nothing whatsoever to do with ghost trains. Last of all, there was a diamond, said Buster. But that doesn't fit in. The jewellery robbery happened in London, not here. Still, said Emily, perhaps we should tell James about it. You said he was interested in that photo of Johnny Carmichael. Ah, said Buster, I don't know. It was later that evening, when the sun had set in a pinkish sky, that Fidget woke up, his mind as clear as a trout stream, to find that everyone had gone to bed. Emily was tucked up with a dictionary and a large notepad. What are you doing, my little ducks? Asked Fidget. You should be asleep by now. Emily showed him what she had written on her notepad. It looked like a crossword puzzle, and Fidget had never got the point of crossword puzzles. He sat down at the end of the bed. Blinky Bellvale, said Emily, is the king prawn who owns the amusement park. That's one thing, that Fidget replied. That's one of the things I found out this afternoon. He turned up at the ballroom. Did he? Said Emily, interested. I wonder why. But anyway, Blinky means eyes in slang. It says so in this dictionary. Sorry, you caught me with a flea spray in me paw. And vale is another word for valley, said Emily. And that made me think of the valley of... And she showed him a notebook. She had written Bell Vale. Nope, haven't a flea of a clue. Emily started to explain. Fidget stood up. You're not saying what I think you're saying. What do you think I'm saying? Said Emily. That we're up a blind valley, said Fidget. No, said Emily. Fidget twisted his whiskers. It's all fish paste to me. What I think is you need a good night's sleep, and in the morning there's a ghost train I want to take you on. Emily yawned. I would like that. Sweet dreams. She closed her eyes, and before you could say the cat's jim jams, Emily was fast asleep. Fidget drew the curtains and turned out her bedside light. It was then that it struck him like a wet kipper on a hot day. Emily had been trying to tell him that she had made a diabolical discovery. Blinky Bellvale was the bog-eyed loader. Early the following morning, Detective James Cardwell was to be found sitting in his office at New Scotland Yard. He was comparing a printout of a mugshot of the renowned diamond snatcher known as the Maestro with the photo of Johnny Carmichael, and that he had been given by Sergeant Binns at Puddley-Pool Police Station. It was a black and white photo, and on it Johnny was wearing an evening suit with a white bow tie. On his nose he wore perched large black round frame glasses that hid most of his face. A moustache hid most of his mouth. Taking up a felt tip pen, James purposefully drew round frame glasses and a moustache on the face of the Maestro. Well, Maestro, said James, or should I call you Johnny? Who killed you and why? There was a knock on his door. Yes, come in, said James. The scent of roses wafted into the room, and James looked up to see Poppy. Good morning, she said cheerfully. I think you might be interested in this. Puddley-Pool Police have had a call from a security guard who works at the Starburst Ballroom. He reported seeing a granny who matched the description of one of the women involved in the Bond Street robbery. Granny? Said James. How does he know she's a granny? Puddley-Pool have sent the CCTV footage, said Poppy. She pulled up a chair next to him and they both watched the screen. The first camera showed a little girl creeping along a passage. Oh no, said James faintly. What? Said Poppy. Nothing, said James. The second camera was on the open door of a cupboard, and the little girl could be seen rummaging in a black bin bag. A few minutes later, the same camera picked up a large woman in a day glow vest who was clearly searching for something inside the cupboard. Who's that? Asked James. I don't know, said Poppy. Sergeant Binns at Puddley-Pool might. The third camera was on the foyer of the ballroom. A white-haired old lady in a scarf shuffled past. To James's utter horror, she had Donut tucked under one arm and was holding Emily by the hand. James's stomach turned over. Emily Royal had been abducted by a dangerous criminal. James, Poppy, he said, I've got to go up to Puddley on Sea at once. Find out what you can about the woman in the day-glow vest. Will you be needing a car? Poppy asked. No, I'll fly, said James absently. Poppy shot him a quizzical look as she left the office, closing the door behind her. Okay, tomorrow we will read chapter 20. See you then.